pain is a sign that something's wrong. And if you only mask the pain, if that's all you're doing, if you are depending on relief care,
Mm,
nothing wrong with relief care. But if you're stopping there, you're just going to downward spiral. Whatever's really wrong is going to get worse.
mm. Hey, welcome back to the Pretty Well podcast. I'm Lisa Smith. Now, I want to ask you something. You've cleaned up your diet, you've cut out the sugar, you started eating real food, and you still don't feel like yourself. So, what's going on? Today, I'm joined by Reed Davis. Reed is the founder of Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. It's a system that has helped over 10,000 people uncover hidden dysfunction, and he's helped over 4,000 practitioners help their patients to take charge of their health. He is a double board certified holistic health practitioner and a certified nutritional therapist. He's also globally recognized in functional lab testing and holistic lifestyle medicine. Reed, I'm so excited to have you back on Pretty Well. Welcome.
Oh, well, it's my pleasure, Lisa. Thanks much for having me. I'm sure we can
Yeah.
help some people today.
You're the founder of FDN, which is Functional Diagnostic Nutrition, and you've helped thousands upon thousands of practitioners and patients. Reed, what's the most common scenario you've seen where someone has cleaned up their diet, started taking supplements, doing all these things to help their health, and they still have gut issues, hormone symptoms, low energy, just they just don't feel well?
It's so common. And see, that's what got me started in the business in the first place was people coming in the office who tried everything.
Mhm.
So there's a phrase I like to use. It's called caught in the cycle of trial and error. So it usually starts with people who've been to the physician or practitioner and maybe even told nothing's wrong with you. Oh, your blood work looks normal. So they end up going down the street to every kind of practitioner looking for answers. And sometimes they get okay answers, like you mentioned, the diet and exercise, but it's still not good enough because they haven't gone deep enough into what's really wrong. And here's the best answer for your question. It's always more than one thing. So we've been talking root cause for me it's almost 30 years, but I've never found one root cause in a person. There's always multiple causal factors. So what I learned, I ran thousands of labs on thousands of people. And I identified multiple healing opportunities, multiple causal factors.
Mm.
Hormones is one thing, can affect the immune system, can affect digestion, can affect detoxification. So, knowing this constellation of healing opportunities, that's what I teach. So, that's the short answer. You should hear the long answer.
Even the short answer, you captured so much there. I do believe, even in functional medicine, we've come under the idea that there's a root cause. And I agree with you. There's never a root cause. There are downstream effects and upstream effects and all kinds of different things going on. And boy, does that make a lot of sense where our hormones, our gut, inflammation, mitochondrial breakdown, all in this mix.
As I was explaining this one day, I said it's metabolic chaos.
Mm.
The idea that metabolic chaos is the real problem, and it is upstream. You have hidden stressors and causal factors entering the body, mixing, bouncing off each other, creating dysfunction. What it creates is metabolic chaos. Like you just alluded to, there's inflammation, there's maldigestion, there's poor detoxification, there's hormonal imbalance, there's immune system overactivity or underactivity. So all this metabolic chaos, and then downstream from that is where the symptoms are. That's how the problem is showing up, but it's not the real problem. The real problem is upstream where that chaos is going on. And so you need a system to sort that out. And that's what FDN is considered to be. It's a method and it's one that works until we sort out metabolic chaos. It's not just that you have hypothyroidism. Yeah, that's a diagnosis. That's siloing thyroid response, but there's so much else going on. The minute you lay down that diagnosis, you're ignoring the other things to work on. And the root cause, according to a recent study at the University of California, San Diego, doesn't even have to be there anymore. So the root cause could be undiscoverable because it's not there anymore, but the downward spiral in metabolism, whichever way that goes, is still in effect. So root causes don't even have to exist. And this is why people have such long histories of trouble. No one ever figured it out. Now it's not there anymore because that's just how the body works. It's very compensatory, it's very adaptive, and it just finds a way to survive. And so you're poking along and you've got metabolic chaos that there's not enough tests. Look, I teach a course in lab work. There's not enough tests. So you have to just identify enough of very important strategic healing opportunities. And there's a pattern. It's HIDDEN: hormone, immune, digestion, detoxification, energy production, and nervous system balance. And that's just a start, but it's a great start on how we sort out metabolic chaos. Here's what we can discover. Here's some markers, labs we can run, some indicators, analytes that we can look at, see how they're connected, and then give a person stuff to do so that they can live themselves out of the trouble they've lived themselves into.
I don't think, Reed, anyone's put it in the framework you just gave us, which I really appreciate. It's a great acronym, hidden, and then you have all these main pillars of our human experience and what's all going into that pool to make that metabolic chaos. So for our listener today, let's talk about what does it feel like if you're in metabolic chaos?
Well, people are tired and fatigued and they're not sleeping well and they're overweight and they are in a bad mood a lot of the time for no apparent reason
Mm.
and poor health, not feeling like you used to. Sometimes it's just that simple. But there are also times, and this is a disclaimer, if you will, if that downward spiral towards worse and worse health and eventually really bad, where things are diagnosable and look, now you've got this and that. Those are true medical conditions. There's also where people are showing up where that downward spiral is medical. So if you get off a plane from West Africa and your temperature is 105 and you're bleeding from your eyeballs, you're not going to call your nutritionist.
Right.
Again, so that we're in these downward spirals. When they're protracted, there's time to heal.
Mm.
So there's time to capitalize on the observations we make. We're going to look at the hormones and the immune system and digestion. There's tests and they're easy to do at home. That's how we work. And so you look at these healing opportunities, you see how they're all connected, and then you give a person things to do. Now, I have another acronym for you. So, hidden, that's the investigation,
Mhm.
that's the assessment and the figuring out what's really wrong with people. I started asking people, hey, Mrs. Smith, and that happens to be your name. It's my favorite last name to use. Everybody's Mrs. Smith to me.
Great now. Yeah.
So, Mrs. Smith, I see you coming in the office 3 times a week. That's great. They're coming in for modalities, chiropractic, acupuncture. We had everything at this wellness center. And we had a DO, so we had medical as well. How's that working for you? And they would go, it's okay. Some were very happy, but I just kept getting this a little better, a little better. So I started saying, well, what are you doing at home? You come in the office 3 times a week. Tell me about the rest of the days. And they didn't have a program. They didn't
Mm.
have something. They'd never been taught how to live themselves out of the problems that they live themselves in. Now, I came up with DRESS, and that's diet, individualized rest. It's not just sleep, it's resting emotions in your soul. It's exercise, of course, DRE, exercise. And that has to be individualized because trust me, at 73 years old this month, I'm not doing the same exercise I did at 40. So each one of these things, diet, rest, exercise, and the two S's in our dress is stress reduction and then supplementation, which is very important, but it's not the only thing. You can't supplement yourself out of bad health. You can
That's right.
mitigate, but you're never going to totally live yourself out of your problems that you lived yourself into with supplements alone. So it's diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, supplementation, HIDDN investigation. You got the healing opportunities. The labs are all easy to do at home for the most part. And then you got your customized program in between, totally individualized. And the key word there is clinical correlation. Do these test results explain you, the person? So then we have totally what the DRESS should look like.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that's using a narrow path. We teach people a narrower path that's
Yeah.
going to make them healthy and happy. And why they don't all do it, I don't know. That's where the health coaching comes in. It works.
It works. And this is where others in functional medicine tend to get it wrong. They apply a conventional medical model using diet, supplements, and lifestyle prescriptively, like you would use pharmaceuticals. So, oh, you have inflammation, I'm going to get you on turmeric and I'm going to get you on SPMs or omega 3s without truly getting to those hidden pieces that require the personalization of the dress. The dress needs to be personalized to the person. So once you do true root cause investigation, that's when we're really looking under the surface and then identifying why, Reed, it's different for you than it is for me. And we may present with the same symptoms, but we have different hidden things going on under the surface that are contributing to that. And when we dial that in more personally, that's when we see the needle move. But you said something so interesting earlier on, and you said sometimes the root cause is gone. Sometimes the root cause resolves, but we still see the downstream effects continuing on in someone's life. That's what is causing the symptoms. That's really fascinating.
People will say things like, I used to be able to do this and I used to be able to do that, and they can't do it anymore. And that could be anything from eating eggs to a certain type of exercise or something in their life they want to do. So I can't do this anymore and I can't do that anymore. Well, something changed, and it could have been something that happened, like a car accident, or it could have been a chemical exposure. It could even have been a mental, emotional, or what I call psychospiritual happening. And that's been resolved for the most part, but it's still affecting the way the body works. The body is very adaptive. It can adapt to so much horrific exposure, and yet you still survive. The body has ways of balancing things up. They're not really balanced, but they're compensating.
Mm.
So if you get emotionally supercharged at a time, it affects your stress hormones. Your cortisol is up all the time. What does that do? It starts breaking your body down. And you have a counter hormone to that called DHEA. Once it's out of balance, for whatever type of stress you had, it could again be mental, emotional, psychospiritual, it could be chemical exposure, and the environment isn't the best, or it could have been trauma like physical car accidents. So all those types of stress will throw you into a catabolic condition. Your body produces so much cortisol, and it's stealing from Peter to pay Paul to compensate for this way you treated yourself or some things that occurred to you, maybe not even within your control. So it throws you out. And that catabolic to anabolic imbalance will, first of all, it'll throw your sex hormones off. You
Mm.
may not have normal periods for the rest of your life
Mhm.
because you go into menopause at 32, and I've seen it happen over and over and over again. So that's what happened to you. Now the stressor is gone. You got over that incident, mental, emotional type of thing, trauma, whether so there's things that happened that could have gone away, but the downward spiral, what it did to you, once the body starts compensating, it gets used to it and it'll just keep doing it that way. Again, estrogen to progesterone ratios, testosterone. By the way, we measured cortisol and DHEA, and that dictates this catabolic dominance. The sex hormones fall right after that. And then guess what? The immune system, because we've seen in people with high cortisol, their secretory IgA goes down. That's easily measured in saliva. the same saliva test that we get the hormones from, catabolic, anabolic, estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, and so on. We also look at SIG-A. When SIG-A is elevated, we know you've got an infection. That's another stressor that you maybe didn't even know you had parasites, bacteria, fungus, virus, or some food you're eating is upsetting the apple cart. So this idea of there being multiple healing opportunities, creating metabolic chaos, that's how people show up. They got some symptoms, but they're not what's wrong. They're just the result of what's wrong.
Hmm.
So it takes some sorting out. And I got to take that one step further and say that even the lab reports aren't what's wrong. They're the result of what's wrong, what's
Mm.
really wrong. And I'm just going to take you back for a second. Remember, I started at this wellness center investigating what's really wrong with people. Remember, I had a lot to learn, but nothing to unlearn. And
Mm.
so the doctors there would laugh at me and say, haha, we can diagnose and treat. You can't, unless you want to go get a medical license, which I didn't. I started taking classes, but they were different. So I've never, ever laid down a medical diagnosis or a treatment plan. Now, I have discovered these hidden underlying causal factors because that was my job. And it turned out I was outperforming the physicians there, whether they were chiropractors. Or, I have story after story of people who were told they had this. Let me run a few labs and tell them, well, here's what's going on, and teach them how to, again, DRESS, their way out of it. And so by changing some of their habits, by asking them, what are you doing at home? And figuring out it was pretty unproductive or even counterproductive, then that allowed me to put a plan together. DRESS. Here's your plan. It used to be on one piece of paper. I kid you not. I could go back 25 years and go, I would had one piece of paper and it had diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, supplementation. And I would have them do, here's the diet, metabolic typings, what we use, rest. Go. I used to say early to bed, early to rise, work like hell and advertise. I'm kidding. But no, diet, rest, exercise, hire a personal trainer. It was so simple back then. Now, of course, we've done a lot of homework. And so now it's super highly individualized. And yet sometimes I think it's a little bit too much. People
Mhm.
could just live cleaner. So I
Mm.
don't know if I answered your question or not, but it went back to when I first started not being allowed to diagnose and treat was the blessing and access to the labs.
Mm.
I know after 10 years and 10,000 people testing these patterns, the hidden and the dress pattern that came out of that, that's what works. And then finally they started telling me you should be teaching. And
Mm.
so I went into teaching after the system that I had created or
That's how
co-created. I
FDN.
had really good mentors, I have to tell you.
When you go back to how you used to do it, did you used to handwrite when you had your form that said DRESS? Would you handwrite it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blanks. So I could just fill in blanks on it. Listen, high tech for me was pagers and fax machines.
Yeah.
Like,
And the
you
reason I
know,
ask you is because when I started, I would handwrite what I had diet, lifestyle supplements, and I would handwrite everything
yeah.
down. People couldn't read my writing. I'm just so glad it's not like that anymore. So you're right. That lab testing with 10,000 clients, you then were able to begin to see patterns and things that you recognized over and over, and you're able to get the nuances. You learn so much when you do that, even more valuable opportunities for health improvement. Those go through the roof as you start to do more and more. People get results faster. So, what labs have you come down to? What are your favorites for helping someone? So, someone listening today, if they're starting from scratch, it's hard to find somebody to go to. Let's talk about find someone who does these labs.
So I like the what was considered alternative labs. Now some of them have been kind of adopted by functional medicine practitioners, like that MRT we talked about earlier. We've been
Mhm.
using that for 30 years. It's one of the best tools you could possibly have to help people, and yet it's not paid for by insurance. They just refused. They call it experimental. Look, after 30 years and all of a million people, it's not experimental anymore. It's just
No,
they
no.
got their algorithms and it doesn't fit in. So I run a saliva test for the hormones, again, the cortisol, DHEA, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. We measure now insulin and secretory IgA and melatonin, all in that same one test. So it gives us a really neat window or snapshot into people and what's really going on in their body biologically, real time. It's all bioavailable. You're not measuring metabolites, you're measuring the real hormones and things like that. And there's over 300 white papers, research papers written about the validity of saliva testing. I have to tell you this is so anecdotal. I'm going to answer your question about the labs, but the reason I started teaching is because a lab director called me up one day and he said, "Who the hell are you?" I said, "I'm Reed." He goes, "No," he goes, "Who the hell are you that you run so many labs?"
Mm.
And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "Our top 5 busiest doctors combined don't run as much lab work as you, and you're not even a frickin' doctor." I just said, I don't, I just like doing it. I love running these labs. So the saliva testing for all of the hormones and other indicators, a urine test for indican. We used originally it was lipid peroxides. Now it's 8-OHDG, and the urinary bile acids. That tells us a lot about a person, and it's easy, just like the saliva, very easy and inexpensive to collect at home. So a saliva test, a urine test, and that gives us digestive markers, liver function, and oxidative stress. Oxidative stress is not in my hidden acronym, but it's just another thing we measure.
Mm.
Now, then I also run a finger stick test for mucosal barrier, which is given us zonulin, histamine, and diamine oxidase. And we're just now adding lipopolysaccharides or LPS to that, which is a toxin
Mm.
that's really prevalent in the gut. It's these tests and how you put the data together that
Mm.
matters. Even just those 3 labs gives a remarkable picture, and it will explain why Mrs. Smith is feeling so lousy. I shouldn't use that name on your show, but it's my everybody is a Mrs. Smith or a Mr. Jones. And when you go over the lab reports with a person, the lab results, high or low or in range or whatever, are not the problem. They're the result of the problem.
Mhm.
They're the result of the stress and the downward spiral dysfunction. I always say, no, all disease does not begin in the gut, but it circles around to it so often that people think it just
Mm,
starts
that's
there. It's
good.
really different types of stress, catabolic, catabolic, that breaks down a bunch of things, everything.
Mm.
And so those 3 labs tell us a lot about a person. Now, I'd also want to find out where some of those stressors are hidden, like the food sensitivities test. Never, never, never forget to run a food sensitivity test on every patient or client because they have some.
Mhm.
They have some in
Yep.
30 years. Never had a person didn't have some sensitivities. Now, the question is, are those sensitivities contributing to the metabolic chaos to a high enough level to create the symptoms and things like that or trigger other dysfunction? Like I say, it's a constellation and you got to connect the dots. So if I ran those 3 labs, saliva, urine, and a finger stick blood test, so easy to do at home,
Mhm.
you get so much information from that. And the person, they're going to go, wow, how come no one else ever did this before? Why didn't my regular doctor tell
Mhm.
me about this? Well, they're not trained in it. They're trained to look at disease and identify disease. And that's not a bad thing. It's just not enough. It's not functional enough. It's not looking upstream enough. And so that's what we do. And in addition to those 3 labs, the stool test for microbiome and pathogens like, again, bacteria, and there's some serious overgrowth going on out there.
Mm.
Fungus and viruses and of course, parasites can be prevalent in a person. And those, by the way, are more causal of some of the other dysfunction, but they're also resultant of a poor health condition. Like you're already kind of broken down, your
Mm.
immunity's down. There's lots going on before those things would really take hold. So it's very interesting how it works. And then, of course, the food sensitivities. You've got to do that. And then, in order to, I don't like the word prescribe, but to be able to make serious recommendations on DRESS, you got to fuel the body properly. You've got to rest. You got to exercise, move things around, and you got to reduce stress. Those parasites, bacteria, funguses, food sensitivities, they're very stressful.
Hmm.
There's different types of stress. So your
Yeah.
body responds the same and it breaks down the same.
Yep. And I appreciate you bringing up the MRT. And for our listeners, we mentioned it, but you and I talked about it off air. And the MRT is my very favorite food sensitivity test, and it gets results. As you were saying, it's no longer anecdotal. There's plenty of evidence to back up its efficacy. But what you had mentioned is every single person I've ever tested, yes, everyone has food sensitivities. And the question is, to what degree are those sensitivities contributing to the metabolic chaos, as you mentioned? This this is something I'm taking away from what you said. Still, going ahead and removing those things from your diet once you know and have that specific information frees up the energy to handle some of the other roots that we're talking about. You're talking about dysbiosis and what else is going wrong in the gut. Well, now you've just freed up this energy that the body can start to get on more even footing to begin to address what else is going on.
So the attention that the body wants to place on, let's say, regular digestion, breaking down food, making it available for absorption and assimilation and getting the nutrients out of it. If you got food sensitivities, you're not going to heal. So you asked in the very beginning, why do people, they think they're eating right? They're
Yes.
going to the gym. They just, well, guess what? If you're not testing, you're guessing. And about those foods, now you could try food elimination, but why not just go get the test? This test, the mediator release test, MRT, will tell you what foods that you're sensitive to, and you don't even have to have eaten them. So, because you hear other people say, oh, well, I did an allergy test, I'm not allergic. This is not looking at it the same way. It's not IgE and it's not IgG either, because those are, you have to have eaten that food to
Right.
get the response. No, because with MRT, it just knows. It's really remarkable technology. It's been around forever. Even before the MRT, it was called the ALCAT test. It's the
Mhm.
next evolution is actually what happened. Dr. Pasula left Alcott, he invented it, and then went on, started his own lab and perfected it in the late 90s. That happened.
So Owlcat was before my time, but I had heard of it and
Yeah.
I just never had,
It's called cell mediated testing, which for some reason standard medicine doesn't want to recognize. Insurance companies don't want to have to pay for it.
no.
That's my conspiracy theory anyway. But we had a lady come in the office. This was 25 or 6 years ago. And she was coming in mostly for chiropractic at the time. She'd been to the gym and hurt her neck or something. And so she's coming in mostly for pain. And I was walking her back to the treatment room. But anyway, and she goes, I said, hey, why are you looking so sad today? She said, oh, Reed, it's this weight, 40 pounds overweight. It's obvious. I'm 40 pounds overweight, and it's really distressing because I haven't always been like this. It started 2 years ago when I started taking medication for the hives. And she said, yeah, I started taking this medication for the hives 2 years ago, and I've gained 40 pounds, and there's nothing I can do about it. And my brain is just spinning. And
Yeah.
she goes, and Rita, I went to the doctor the other day for a checkup, and I told him this weight is killing me, that this 40 pounds and the shirts that don't fit. And she used some words that I didn't really understand, frumpiness or something like that. She felt frumpy all the time. And the doctor told her, she said, lady, you can be fat or you can have the hives.
Hmm. No,
Take your pick.
no.
And so now I'm seeing why she's so upset this day and staring at the ground and unhappy and
Yeah.
stuff. And she says, well, doctor, that's very depressing. And he said, according to her, I'll be happy to write your prescription for antidepressants. Imagine the look on her face when I said, "What if we found out why you were getting the hives?
Yeah.
What was causing the hives?" And her head snapped around so hard, I thought she wouldn't need her chiropractic treatment that day. She just, what? Like all of a sudden, what? I go, well, what if we ran some tests and found out why you get the hives? What's causing it? And it had never occurred to her or her physician to do that. And guess what I had her walk out of the office with? The MRT kit and a couple others, checked her hormones and different things. But and it came back within 9 days after we got the results. I consulted with her. 9 days later, she called her doctor. She told me this. She called her doctor and said, "I am not using the medication anymore. I found out why I get the hives."
Mm.
So no more hives, no more
Mhm.
medication. And in another week, she was telling me she was at the gym working out to a sweat because even on the medication, that would give her the hives. So she hadn't worked out to a sweat in 2 years, and she hadn't had a hot shower in 2 years.
Oh my goodness.
So imagine the life changingness of that for her and for me, because I thought, whoa, I was scary. It was like good chills still go up and down my spine about helping people. And wow, why isn't standard medicine do? And functional medicine has come along much later and claimed that that's what they do, but I don't think it's exactly what they do, but at least it's trying to get there. So that MRT test, to your point, has been, I mean, I could get, you know, how many stories I have like that,
Hmm.
that send chills up and down the practitioner's spine because they, at first I thought I was just getting lucky, but then I actually discovered it was a system that I was, this way of thinking. Amazing.
People are given the wrong impression when they go to the doctor and they say, I think it's related to my food. And the doctor says, well, then let's test you for food allergies. And that, while that is beneficial, that is not what we see commonly. Some people have food allergies, but we tend to see sensitivities driving all these mysterious things. I've seen high blood pressure normalize. I've seen rashes go away. I've seen edema, chronic ankle edema gone. It's where people have tried medicating and nothing is actually working. And then you find something, and here's where the elimination diet falls short. First of all, you won't choose some of the foods to eliminate that you may be sensitive to because they're healthy foods. So for me, lemon, garlic, onion, which I cooked with all the time, I have high
Yeah.
sensitivities to all of those. I would never think to eliminate those things. But once I did, it's life changing. So you just wouldn't know. And the other problem with the elimination diet is it's brutal. And you get to the point where you're just chasing it and you cannot come up with why you're still reacting, but you're eating like four things. And you're like chicken, rice, and green beans and water, and you're just so over it.
Yeah, that's really observant, universal that people have food sensitivities. And as you said correctly, you know, it's the degree to which they're triggering things. I've had the same thing occur like with migraine headaches. I had kids on my football team that had asthma that we tested, no more asthma. I had a mom that I was working with, Lisa, and she was happy coming in the office. She was seeing me for some nutrition. She was getting chiropractic and feeling better. And on the way out the door one day, she said, "Reed, do you work with children?" Now, I love kids. I raised four and I had a football team and I just love it. And he said, "Yeah, why?" She goes, "Well, they're trying to send my son home from school if I don't put him on Ritalin."
Mm-mm.
I'm like, "What? How old is your son?" Nine.
Oh,
9 years old. Now, this is a long time ago when Ritalin was the preferred drug for ADD and ADHD, which I never really understood that diagnosis. There's something wrong for sure. But so I said to her, first I tried to get a laugh out of her. I said, "Well, do you think your son has a Ritalin deficiency?" And she didn't think it was funny one bit. She got mad and said, "No. And I don't want to put my son on any drugs, medication, but they're forcing me if I don't figure something out." Can you help him or not? I said, I don't know. Maybe. Let's see. Ran some tests. I give you my word. By the way, Ritalin a class 2 narcotic, and they were recommending it to a 9-year-old. And it wasn't a nurse or doctor at the school, it was the teacher and principal
Oh,
had tell this lady, he's out of here if you don't put him on drugs. Because all they cared about was the behavior, not the child. And that just upset me to no end. Within 3 weeks after telling the mom what to do, I got a call. The principal tracked me down
oh wow.
and said, hey, Mr. Davis, I'm so and so, I'm Billy's principal at school. And this is a different kid. He's paying attention. He's not poking the other kids. He's not outbursting inappropriately, anything like that. He's actually kind of a solid student now. And I'm like, my whole ego's just going up through the roof. And I was happy. And I thought, oh man, he's going to send every kid in the school to me for help. And then he goes, what'd you put him on?
Hmm.
Just really just burst the bubble. What'd you put him on? As if it was some magic pill he was going to be able to get all the other kids to take or whatever like that. And I said, well, sir, it's kind of hard to explain. We put him on a really pure diet, one that's right for him. We put him on a better exercise schedule because you don't work the kids out enough. We put him on a better homework schedule and bedtime, things like that. That's what we put him on. He didn't want to hear it. He just wanted to know what's in the bottle. But man, just think how happy that kid's probably PhD now or something.
Yeah.
Who knows? But it wasn't a drug deficiency. The food sensitivity testing was huge in that. So test don't guess, right?
Exactly. For our listener today, Reed, someone who says, well, I think about how many times you and I have heard someone say, I think I'm trying everything. I'm eating right. I'm taking the supplements I was told to take. I'm exercising. I don't feel any better. What are one or two things our listener could take away today that could be life-changing if they do them consistently?
Well, first of all, understand that there's an innate intelligence that the body knows what it's doing if there's nothing interfering with that, if you want to use the word normal or healthy function. It's not that there isn't genetic problems here and there. You can only decide that you're going to do something about it and not put up with the status quo. So pain is a sign that something's wrong. And if you only mask the pain, and look, I'll take an aspirin. I just had hip surgery 3 weeks ago, brand new right hip from overuse, or you might say abuse. But so I took some pain meds. That's okay. But if that's all you're doing, if you are depending on relief care,
Mm,
nothing wrong with relief care. But if you're stopping there, you're just going to downward spiral. Whatever's really wrong is going to get worse.
mm,
And
mm,
so take a look at our system. Diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, supplementation is a lifestyle. We call it FDN, Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. And you know you've made it when you got your initials on your shirt, right? We must be something.
I
So
got this
anyway,
pretty well,
uh,
sure, pretty well.
yeah. Well, you look so good, better than pretty well, but you're doing pretty well. But you might want to do things that you don't think you could do anymore. So you got to take a look at your own life. And
Mm,
it's not going to be some magic in a bottle for the most part. It's going to be how you lived. You lived yourself into it.
mm,
So that's a lot to consider. If I had to pick one thing, I get up and pray every morning. I try to, when I put my feet on I get out of bed, I'm on the right side no matter what. I swing my legs over, I put my feet on the floor. I don't jump up immediately. I try to put my feet on the floor for a sec and go, okay, thank you for all the blessings. Thank you for my health. Thank you for all the opportunity I have to do good in the world and all the blessings. And for my wife, might still be sleeping or she might be at the gym already or whatever, but stuff like that. So I start with attitude, just a grateful attitude. I have a friend who a trainee. He's a wonderful interview. He's an FDN practitioner, but he's gone on to he calls it vitamin G, gratitude. G guy. He's so happy all the time. And I think it's a choice we make, and it's written that that's the better way to be. Yeah. So if you started in the morning with, look, things are going to happen, but at the end of the day, you might be beat to heck and need to get back to that. Go back and put your feet on the ground or whatever it takes for you to remember that it's by grace are we here and able to do good stuff to help others.
Yeah, that's so good. When you were talking about dress, Reed, DRESS, and I asked you that question, it's a little bit of a trick question because it's going to be different for everyone. But I do find that when we do start in the morning with prayer and gratitude, and then just going inward and being quiet for it could be just a few minutes. A lot of us jump up and run out the door and get the day going. But just if we can go inward for a bit, we often know where we need to start, whether it's stress reduction, sleep improvement, supplements, exercise. We have that innate intelligence that we've been given. And so we often know, I know I need to do a better job with getting some rest. And maybe not sleep, maybe it's rest during the day. Maybe I need to slow down and give myself that gift. Or maybe it's my diet. Or I think intuitively, there's a lot we already know.
Yeah, amen. Right back at you. And the only other thing I would add to it at this point, it occurs to me that work is not a dirty four-letter word. That it can be work. You could have some work ahead of you, and you want to accept that with the same gratitude in the sense that there's a path for you. It's a little bit narrower, maybe, than you're used to, but it gets to be kind of a joy to know you're doing it because the results are so good.
Yeah.
The results of vibrancy are more joy. And that's what it's all about. There's an inner joy that you want to see, and you can't hardly achieve it if you're not healthy. Like
Right.
this thing on my hip has been horrible. Don't let anyone tell you that, oh, hip replacement, that's the easy one. What you don't want is your knees. So you don't want your knees done. But hips are good. Hips are easy.
Oh,
People
no.
told me that. I waited 2 years to get, and it's no picnic.
I bet it's no picnic.
Yeah,
Mm-mm.
I gotta tell you, I was in by 7. My appointment was at 7. I was home by 4:30 in bed in a
Wow.
lot of pain. But it's remarkable. Now, so all of those things they say about the mechanics and the logistics, that's very true. But being in pain is no fun.
Mm-mm.
The point I was trying to make is that there's work involved in being healthy and joyful, but I just thought I had to add that today.
I'm glad you did. I do find that a lot of times some of the journey we go through, when we get past it, we realize there was purpose in it. And that purpose is so we recognize others who are going through a similar journey, and then we can come alongside them and help.
Oh, well, you're doing amazing things in your work, and
Thank you.
I praise you for that. So thank you for that, Lisa.
Thanks, Reed. And guys, thanks for joining us today. I've so enjoyed talking with Reed and you guys being here. I'll be back next week. Until then, stay pretty well. Bye.